Hello team, welcome to my session on Coffee with Prabh, and today we're going to discuss about governance risk compliance interview question part 3. Thank you for the great feedback. Thank you for the amazing response you have shared on my part 1 and part 2. So I thought I will make a part 3 also on the GRC. I'm planning to make more sessions in future on the GRC, and I'm also planning to invite more speakers who sharing their experience on GRC. So if you're new to my channel, do subscribe to my YouTube channel and click on the bell icon to make sure you should not miss my future videos on a similar topic. My name is Prabh Nair. For more information, you can check my LinkedIn profile. So without wasting a time, let's start with the first part. Thank you. Okay, so we are starting with the first question. What is PCI DSS standard? As you said, most of the companies now moving to the payment integrators, they're building the payment platforms. So they want to comply their payment platforms with the PCI DSS standard. And sometimes what happened from a customer point of view who consumes some services from the payment integrators, they also want a, PCI DSS certifications and all that. So from that point of view, a lot of companies, when they hire consultant in their interviews, they always ask this question: PCI DSS standard, scoping, assessment, and all that. So as a GRC consultant, you should be also familiar with PCI DSS standard. So I thought I will add this particular question in my session. So let's start with the first question is, what is PCI DSS standard? So first of all, there is always a confusion. Is it a standard or it is a regulation? First of all, it is a standard. It is not a regulation. Okay, it is not a regulation of a particular country or particular state. It is a standard. So any company who collecting a debit card, credit card data, okay, they need to be comply for the PCI DSS standard. So PCI stand for Payment Card Industry Data Security System. So it is an information security standard for the organization that handle branded credit cards or debit card for the major card schemes. Example, this is the company. Suppose we have Amazon. Okay, this company is basically collect the credit card information, debit card information. Example, so when they're collecting a credit card and debit card, there is always a concern for the consumer: is my card, is my data is basically safe and secure? So PCI DSS authority, okay, basically giving a visibility to the customer. Yes, these applications or these companies who collecting your debit card, credit card information, they are basically securing your data. They're maintaining the security of your cards and everything. So in that case, the QSA, the auditor, is going to assess the infrastructure, and based on that, they try to understand the appropriate controls they have in the infrastructure. And by this, they're giving them assurance, they're giving the certification about the PCI DSS standard. And that give the visibility to the customer: yes, my credit card, my debit card, which is processed by Amazon, the infrastructure is basically secure. As I said, it is not a regulatory requirement. It is not something a particular country has said, okay, your bank or your application should be PCI DSS. It is just building a brand. It is building awareness, it building a stability, it building the confidence among the consumer that yes, I can use my credit card, debit card, on that particular application and website. So PCI DSS primarily address the confidentiality aspect of data, and then integrity, and then availability. So as I said, PCI has no legal authority to comply for the compliance. It is a requirement for any business that process the credit card or debit card transaction. So if I visit a Amazon website, if I visit the Paytm website, and I can see the PCI DSS logo, it give me assurance, yes, they are PCI DSS compliant. So my credit card, my debit card, whatever I'm using against this application, it is basically secure. I have some lot of websites which is not PCI DSS compliance, but still they are accepting a credit card, debit card informations. So it is basically which is subject to our own risk if I want to use or not. Is it clear? So PCI certification is also considered the best way to safeguard the sensitive data and information, thereby helping the business building long lasting and trust relationship with their customer. So if you're able to answer in this way the questions, it gives the confidence among the interviewer. Okay, he knows this topic. So now let's discuss what is the best practice for implementing a PCI DSS in a business as a usual process, which is my second interview question part. Okay, so second question, what is the best practice for implementing PCI DSS into business as a usual process? Example, there is a possibility the interviewer wish to know your experience on PCI DSS. There's a possibility. And in that case, they might ask you, okay, you are a company who wish to comply for PCI DSS. So how you implement the PCI DSS practice in your organization? So how you handle this? So here they want to know your leadership skills. They want to know your project management skills. They want to know your consulting skills. Okay. So, if I am a consultant and I have a way to deliver this thing, so I will start with assigning the overall responsibility and accountability of PCDS compliance to the individual or team. In every organization, there's a dedicated team we have, which is called as the assurance teams and consulting team and all that. So they will be basically responsible for implementing a PCI DSS. Definitely they cannot be accountable. Accountability always lies with the senior management. But first thing, if you want to build a PCI DSS in your system, the first important thing, assign the responsibility and accountability for PCI DSS to the individual or team. Second is developing a performance matrix. Anything you implement in the organization, okay, and if you're not introducing a matrix to measure that, then there's no point of implementing a solution. So number of control we have achieved, number of control we have not achieved. Okay, what is your expectation? What is your set of goals? It is very important for you to define. So that is why develop the performance matrix to measure the effectiveness of the security initiatives and continuous monitoring of the security control. That is the most important thing we have to do. Third, review the log data more frequently to gain insight to trend or behavior that may not obvious with the only monitoring. So we have implemented the PCI DSS system in the organization. So definitely we need to monitor. We look for the deviations. Okay, we look for the deviation. So with the deviation, we get a visibility about, how the control is working effectively. Is it meeting my defined KPI? Is it meeting my KGI? Is it meeting my KRI? So that kind of a thing is required. Okay, so by the log data, we can able to validate the results. Next is ensure all failures. I repeat, ensure all failures. What we have, all failures in security controls are detected and respond to promptly. Example, as for PCI DSS, we need to safeguard the information. We need a firewall. Firewall is not working effectively. So if firewall failed to detect the new things, we have a IDS, we have a other monitoring solution to detect those alerts. So make sure we should have a proper control in place to detect the threats and everything. Review changes that could introduce security risk to the environment. Okay, new deviations are there in the system. Okay, and if you're introducing those changes, it need to go through a change management process. Then review the impact on the PCI scope and recommend upon the changes to the organized structure. It's very important tomorrow if there's a major change in the business. So review the scope again, and according to that, update the PCI DSS scope parameter. And sometime review the external connection third-party access periodically. Example, like we are building our own payment integrator platform. But in that case, we have taken some external APIs. So thoroughly test those APIs on a regular basis. Check what kind of a data you are collecting. Okay, do the VAPT against your infrastructure, which give you visibility about how secure is your connections. Is it clear? So this is something is a best practice we are following while implementing a PCI DSS in the business as a process. Now let's move to the next interview question. So next question is how to conduct PCI DSS assessment. Sometimes what happen, interviewer wish to know whether you have experience of PCI DSS or not. Do you have a experience of doing an assessment? In some ITGC jobs, there is a requirement to review the PCI DSS reports and all that. So, you need to have a high level understanding about how the assessment carried in the organization. So this is also, I have added this question in my session. So what is or how to conduct PCI DSS assessment in the organization? So first step is scope. It's very important to know the scope. Okay, scoping is very important because scope is basically give the clarity about what to be included in the audit. If I'm auditing a payment card systems and all that, so that will be the scope. In that, how many servers are basically support that particular applications? How many services are basically support that application that need to be added? So scoping is basically the first important step. That's why we have added here is confirm the scope. Second is based on a scope. Okay, we understood this is the application platform we have which collecting a data, and behind the scene there are 3 servers are there which basically supporting that, over which 7 applications are basically hosted. So we perform the PCI DSS assessment of that particular environment based on the scope. Then third is complete the reports, okay, of assessment according to the PCI DSS guidance. So whatever the PCI DSS guideline we have, according to that we basically prepare the report, and then we go for the attestation. Attestation is basically all about the conformity, okay, signatures and everything. So we need to complete the attestation of a compliance for the service provider, or it can be a merchant. In this case, I complete the report of the Amazon. So Amazon is basically my service provider. Then we submit the applicable PCI SSC. As I said, when you're talking about PCI SSC, what is that? Okay, PCI SSC. So PCI SSC is basically stand for Payment Card Industry Security Standard Council. So it is a global forum that brings together the payment industry stakeholders to develop and drive adoption of the data security standard and resource for the safe payment worldwide. So we basically, submit the report along with the documentations. Along with that, we also have one more important thing, which is called as a ASV. ASV basically stand for Approved Scanning Vendor. Okay, ASV is basically called as a Approved Scanning Vendor. So ASV scan must be performed by the PCI Approved Scanning Vendor. Like there's a lot of companies, okay, who are PCI compliance providers. So whatever the assessment we have, it will be done as per the ASV. Okay. So PCI ASV scan we do against the external vulnerability from outside of the organization. Okay, where we're scanning services inside into data security changes that need to be made, that to be comply for the organization PCI DSS requirement. Is it clear? So we scan all the solutions. We basically check for the sections of cardholder data environment, which can be scanned separately during a scan. Okay, and after the scanning is completed, we have interim reports. Okay, the results which is presented to the customer, and the customer make the necessary remediations. Then there is a dispute is there where the client and ASV collaborate to document and resolve the controversial screening results. And then we again do the rescan. And if there are no scan, vulnerability report approved by the PSI ASV is generated and the report is sent and delivered to the customer securely. Is it clear? So that is how it works. So here also the ASV scan report has been done. After that, if required, we can also perform the remediation steps to address those requirements and update the things clearly. So that is how the PCI DSS assessment is basically happen in the organization. Now question is, how often should you perform the PCI ASV scan? PCI ASV scan are required at least quarterly and after the significant changes in the organization or significant network changes such as new system component has been installed, network topology changes, firewall rule changes or product upgrades are there. An organization that is PCI DSS compliant must perform their ASV scan every 3 months or 4 times a year. And if your ASV scan result in a failed, then corresponding fixed ASV scan must be performed in the same quarter of the failed ASV scan until the successful scan is basically completed. Is it clear? Now question is, which system should be under the ASV scanning? So PCI DSS required vulnerability scanning of all the internet facing system components that are accessible and owned or used by the scanning customer that part of the cardholder data environment or any system that provide the path to the data environment of the cardholder. Okay, so any IP that store, process and transmit data, IP address which is linked to the IP which is automatically included in the scan. If the scope is IP address that can be accessed from another address, that also need to be covered. Is it clear? PSV scan should also cover the physical or logical segmentation of external infrastructure unless used in the network. So scanning process bit tedious, but the most important thing is to have a PCI compliance for a business, and at the end of the day, working with the ASV company in a different from a working group with the other QSA we have. So that is the thing we have. And depending upon your business size, you can assess your PCI compliance with the self-assessment form also without working with the QSA. However, this option is not available for the external vulnerability scan. Okay. So as per the PCI SSC, it required working with the ASV to complete a regular network scan at all merchant compliance level. Okay, so that is the pointer we have when you're talking about the PCI parameter. So let's move to the next interview question. Okay, so what is PIA? Why we conduct PIA in the organization? Now PIA basically stands for Privacy Impact Assessment Team. Privacy Impact Assessment. Let's take an example. So there is a project or there is an application. Okay, this application need to be comply with GDPR. So as a user or as a consultant, as a compliance guy, I'm going to conduct the PIA on this application to understand how this application is going to collect the data. It is not about what is the data it store in the application. It is all about how the application is going to collect and process the data. Okay, so PIA is a assessment which basically ensure the privacy controls must be there in the organization. and they should collect the data according to the compliance requirement. So PIA is a process of identifying and assessing the privacy risk throughout the development life cycle of a program or system. PIA is a process that assists organization in identifying and managing a privacy risk, which is posed by the new projects, initiatives, system, processes, strategy, policies, business relationship, and other things also. So PIA is not limited to only SDLC. PIA used in a projects also, PIA used in a process also, PIA used in any kind of initiatives. Like the way we have a risk assessment to identify risk associated with the projects, same like we try to identify the privacy gaps in the projects. So according to that, we can apply the necessary controls. So PIA should identify whether information being collected comply with the legal regulatory requirement. Okay, the risk and effect of collecting, maintaining, disseminating PIA that we try to identify. Protecting and process for handling information to elevate any potential privacy risk that we can basically identify. So that is basically captured under the PIA. Okay, level of privacy control that must be there in the system, and why should we collect this information? Okay, that is called as a PIA. Who will do this? Data privacy professional, data protection professionals. They basically conduct the PIA on the processes and applications. So let's move to the next interview question. Okay, so next interview question, how to build a privacy management system in the organization. Sometime what happened? Okay, GRC professional need to implement the PMS system in the organization. And as you know, nowadays privacy is a top priority for most of the companies. So you should be well versed with how to implement PMS in the organization. So what is PMS? The way we creating ISMS system, we talk about the necessary control must be there in the information system from a security point of view. Same like we need a necessary control from a privacy point of view. So here the question is how to build a privacy management system in the organization. First, develop the business strategy. Because in this question, they also want to know your leadership skills. You want like to know your project management skills and all that. So they will say, okay, you have joined our company and you wish to implement the privacy management system in the organization. So how you do that? So first most important thing is called develop the business strategy, business proposition value, business case. Submit to the management why we need a privacy management system in the organization. So that's the most important thing we have that we need to understand. And we can able to secure the funding. Based on that, we basically build or hire the privacy team. Now here you have a choice. Either you can basically outsource or you can basically build in-house. Third, we develop the project plan, goals, target dates, activities, roles and responsibility about the privacy executions, privacy system executions. So that is basically the third step. And based on this project plan and all that, examine the flow of information, schedule the meeting with the business stakeholder to understand what kind of information they basically store and process. Now this is the product industry we have. They are into the product making. They have a customer in India, they have a customer in Europe, they have a customer in UK, they have a customer in US. So I will schedule the meeting with everyone and understand their business requirement, understand their regulatory requirement to make sure the common control should be there to address those parameters. So, and then examine the flow of information, how the information is basically processed, what are the necessary controls they have. So that visibility, that understanding is required here. Then decide what PII, business identify information, other data need to be protected, because it is not possible that every data will be protected as a PII. There's a difference. The difference between the privacy and secrecy. Privacy is basically the state of individual in information which is deal with the individual. And secrecy is the state of information which is deal with the organization. So not every data is a PII. So we need to identify what PII we have. And according to that, we basically protect. Is it clear? PII basically help me to limit the amount of, PII protection start with the data minimization, because more we collect, more accountability comes to us. So create a privacy policy. Define what BI we have, business identifier information and other data that need to be protected. Next is called as understand what are the current standards we have, because it is good to adopt some standards. It is good to understand the regulation, because regulation something must be followed. After having a meeting with the business stakeholder, we already get a visibility about the regulations. Then we identify what data we have. And then I'm trying to identify what standards and regulations we have. First, we need to understand the regulation, then based on that, understand the business requirement, or first schedule the meeting with the business owners, understand everything, then understand what regulation says, what they need and what we have, identify the gap, And that gap will be addressed by the strategy by adopting standards, controls, frameworks. Okay, so that is a pointer we have. Next, create a privacy policy. It is very important. Any system you want to introduce in the organization, it should be backed and supported by the policy. Policy is a foundation of any governance. So create a privacy policy, set the intent, why we need to protect our PII, why privacy security is important, why need to maintain the privacy of our customer. That message should be clear for our system. So create a privacy policy by involving all the business team, take their input and submit the policy to the senior management. They will basically approve the policy. Next, create a process of managing a privacy risk, establish the process for dealing with the breaches. If tomorrow breach happen, how you manage the things. If any breach happen, what to report, how to report, that need to be included in the reporting process. One important thing, when you review the relevant information privacy standard or when you're deciding PI, especially during a PI, some parameters need to be added. Example, where is the data located, who used that data, who has a custody, how the data kept secure, how to authorize user access the data. All those questions we can ask so you get a better visibility. So this is how you can able to build the privacy system in the organization. Okay. So next pointer is establish the privacy plan, review and testing process to make sure whatever the controls you have working, it's working effectively. And most important, establish the annual schedule for the privacy activity to ensure is the controls are working as per the required defined guideline. Okay, it's very important to review the privacy control quarterly, yearly, monthly. It's up to you depending upon the business acquisitions, okay, or different business requirement. So let's move to the next interview question. Sometime in the organization, in interviews, they also try to ask how to conduct a security gap assessment in the organization. I'm not saying I'm doing a risk assessment. I'm just saying a security assessment just to identify what is the level of gaps we have. So the first part is adopt information security standard or framework. So framework need to be adopt, standard need to be adopt. Second is define the scope. It's very important. What is the scope we have? So in a large enterprise, it may be necessary to conduct multiple analysis, having a meetings and everything. Okay. And based on that, we can able to finalize what is the scope. Then gather all the documents. Okay. So scope is clear. This set of department, this set of systems, this set of services need to be assessed. Now, based on that, we collect all the policies, standard procedures, SOP and guideline, what they have. So we can able to understand their current state and we can able to also understand what is the desired state. Then we gain the senior management approvals. We create a comprehensive information security questionnaire because whatever the feedback, whatever the gaps I identify from those documents, I will prepare the questionnaire for that. Just need to cross check. Example, during a policy, I discovered that password control is there. So in the questionnaire, I will say that is this password control is defined as per the standard? Yes or no? So questionnaires is very important to capture their complete picture of the organization. Then based on the questionnaires, we basically try to identify the gaps, what they have and what they need to implement. Then publish your reports that this is something we have identified and this is what we need. And based on that, you can submit the remediation plan. Okay, so this is how we basically conduct the security assessment. So let's take an example. I join one company and they want to do the security assessment. Okay, so first step is what is the standard I'm using for assessment, then schedule the meeting with the business stakeholders, analyzing the scope. Based on the scope, collect the data, collect the documents. What are the gap you identify, add in the questionnaire. Based on the questionnaire, we collect the data. Then data is giving me visibility about what they have and what need to be achieved. Okay, what is the gap you identified? That gap need to be addressed with the recommendations. And based on that, the client will prepare the remediation plan. So this is how you can able to conduct the security assessment in the organization. So this is all from my side. Do let me know what are the common standards you wish to use or you using for your security assessment. Okay. And what is your major takeaway from this video in the comment box? And do let me know what is the next video should I made on the GRC. Thank you for watching my video. If you're still not subscribed to my channel, do subscribe to my channel and click on the bell icon to make sure you should not miss my future videos on a similar topics. Thank you. Goodbye.